Thank you for that great intro. And I wanted to just, thank you, Yassine, and the rest of the Head Starter community for having me today. I think opportunities like this are awesome. I can say personally, my brother is about to graduate with a computer science degree. So I see and feel a lot of your pain every day, not only just in the deepest parts of my memories, right? Talking to him all the time. And so I think things like this are awesome, and I'm really looking forward to sharing some advice with you guys, and also doing some Q&A at the end. So I have a couple slides here that I'll just share. Let me know if you can't see this. Otherwise, I'm going to assume you can see it. So like Yassine said, I'm a software engineer at Major League Baseball. It's nice to meet all you guys. I think this is going to be a good night. So my resume, started off at IBM in global business services, which is just consulting, fancy term for consulting. The industries on some of the projects I worked on while I was there included supply chain, fintech, and even within those categories, right? Like a lot of businesses need a lot of different solutions for the technology that we were building. And so it was, really eye-opening. I was there for about 2.5 years, right up until COVID. And what I really got out of that, right, was like understanding that software development, it's not just solving fancy algorithms. It's not, writing FizzBuzz or solving LeetCode. It's, working with clients to solve whatever problem they might need, right? And a lot of times different clients would have the same problem, right? And seeing how we apply solutions across industries and really gaining a better understanding, not of like how to write the code, right? But how to talk to the people who need you to write that code is just as, if not more important, because if that open communication is not there, then what you're building isn't really going to be effective, right? And not going to be valuable. So I really enjoyed my time at IBM, and I learned a lot. I made a lot of great friends, including one friend who was the connection I had to Yassine. But kind of, I hit my kind of upper bound there, and I was thinking, well, what did I want to do next, right? And a lot of these client projects, you'll find you're on them for 6 to 12 months. Maybe you're kind of working on the initial solution, but you don't really take it beyond that. And so the next thing I wanted to do, I wanted to work on a brand, right? I wanted to, go into a dev shop. Hey, we have this product. We're building a new feature. We want you to see it, from 0 to 100 into customers' hands. And so that's when I moved to Capsule Pharmacy in New York City. At the time, they were heavily growth stage. They had just about wrapped up their Series C round, and they were in a time of heavy growth, obviously during COVID. For those of you not familiar with Capsule Pharmacy, they're basically the Uber Eats for medicine. Direct to consumer pharmacy products. We had an app where we were your pharmacy, right? Just like maybe you go to CVS and pick up your medication. Instead, you just go right to the app and say, I want it delivered between 10 and 12 a.m. and they'd show up at your door. And, obviously, the pharmacy was really cool, right? First of all, I like being able to work for a brand, write code and then push it out to production right away. And it was into users' hands. I was really proud to say that my parents used Capsule, right? And so code that I wrote one day was used the next day to help my parents get their medications. And so I took a lot of personal pride in that. And, on a more, the soft skills side of it, I came in as a junior engineer, fairly junior with 2 years of experience, was able to really dig into, the specifics of the business. And by the time I left Capsule, I was the tech lead for our team, right? And I was really proud of that. I met a lot of people there that I still keep in touch with. The journey was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I was able to use that to apply, to my next job when I landed at Major League Baseball. At Major League Baseball, I'm on the streaming team. If you're a fan of baseball, if you've used MLB.tv, that's me. We do everything for national broadcast games. So if you're out of market, if you're at least 300 miles away from where your favorite team plays baseball, you can use MLB.tv to watch those games. Unfortunately, if you're within 300 miles, you have to go through your local provider, and that's a separate product. But what we're doing is we build the product that grants the ability for baseball fans to watch their games. And I really enjoy that too, right? I'm a huge baseball fan, so it's really cool to work on the product that I use myself. Moving on, yep. So just live events and national broadcast. So moving on, a little bit about me. What I wanted to do here was kind of level set. I've talked about like the positives, the things that I'm really proud of, right? The companies that I've worked for, the things that I've done, how I got to where I am. These are some things that maybe, might be tough to admit for some people, but for me, I think it makes me just a part of who I am. And so, I've solved one leet code hard problem in my entire life. I'm not good at leet code. The second the second I get into the coding screens of interviews, even my last round, I've bombed interviews like where I just can't remember what I need to do, or I've never seen that type of problem before, or I don't solve it in time. And when I was studying for my last round of interviews, it was really anxiety inducing, right? Like leet coding is a very difficult thing to master, really taking like some esoteric problem and asking someone to solve it in like 45 minutes. And so I'm right there with you. That doesn't just go away the more experienced you get. So don't feel bad. And I'm happy to get back. I'm happy to talk about this more later on. I don't write code outside of my work projects. I believe, learning can just as easily be done on the job as it can be outside of the job. And I know right now, a lot of you guys, it's all about like getting that first step. And sometimes you have to give a little extra, and I recognize and appreciate that. But just understand it's not going to be like that forever, right? Once you get your foot in the door and once you're, working 40 hours a week, it's very different. And there are a lot of opportunities, especially in a healthy environment, where you can learn on the job, and that's expected. I saw one comment in the Zoom about like, what you don't, what you're missing from a CS degree. And that's like that, that practical experience, right? Like there's a lot of theory in computer science, but not a lot of practical. Like when you're hired out of school as a junior engineer, that's expected, right? Like that's okay. So like, don't feel like you're behind the eight ball. That's why internships and, are so important, and some, displaying, like your GitHub profile outside of work. And so I think that's just really important to internalize. Certainly it's helped me kind of chill out after I log off. The last thing, I was laid off from my last job. It wasn't directly because of my performance. It just was a matter of the business, right? These economic times that we're living in. My entire team was laid off. And it was because we were a cost center in a group that needed to, cut costs. And that is what it is, right? I have no ill will. I still keep in touch with my manager. I still keep in touch with other people that I worked with that are and are not there anymore. And so all that is to say is like a layoff doesn't have to be the end, right? It's okay. You will come out okay. And so I don't want that to scare you, because I know that there are a lot of layoffs right now. But that doesn't mean that companies are not hiring. That just means that the jobs are maybe, are moving around, but it's not the end of the world. So my advice, just some things, just like really quick, that I feel are important for you guys to internalize, whether you're still in school or, on the beginning of your careers. Take a business class. I could tell you for myself, I had a lot of elective time at RPI. And one of the best choices I ever made was spending 2 of my free elective credits on business classes. Because at the end of the day, a lot of you as engineers will report to people who are not engineers. And so it's important to be able to communicate with them and to explain, not necessarily in like dollar values with fancy pivot tables in Excel or whatever else, but to explain like why they should care as much about the code that you're writing as you do. And so taking a business class and working with those people in college is super important, and it can set you up for success later on. Something that I feel about myself is think of yourself as a maker, right? I think ideas, come a lot, right? It's really easy to come up with an idea. There are a lot of people out there that have a lot of good ideas. All of those ideas people are looking for people to put those things into action, right? And that's where you guys come in. That's why being an engineer is so valuable, right? That's why writing code is such an important skill, right? Because everything is virtual nowadays. Everything uses some layer of software, right? And being able to build that software is really, really important. And knowing the right tools to bring into a project can make you invaluable to someone who maybe doesn't, right? And selling yourself on the technologies that you know and that you've worked with. The next thing, choose boring tech. The link here, boringtechnology.club, I think it's a really fun kind of slide deck to go through this. I know that there are a lot of hot frameworks nowadays, and technology is always evolving, but there's a reason that things like Java, Spring Boot, Python, Django, those are the two, .NET. There's a reason that these languages and frameworks have been around for so long. It's because they get the job done. And so don't be afraid to work in a space maybe that's not as cutting edge, right? Like you'll have an opportunity to work on fun problems in your career, right? What's important right now is finding a job and getting engineering experience, and then like building off of that. And so I think that's really important. I think that this website here really does a good job. That's why I dropped it here. The last point I have, and then we can move on to the Q&A, have fun, right? I think Yassine did a great job of touching on it before. Engineering is a people job. it's not a tech job. You just happen to, know the tech that you're working with. Um, I wish, thinking back to college, like I always used to, feel a little nervous when I get these like homework assignments and like, the prompt was like 2 pages and you'd have to write this crazy algorithm based on the spec that you were given. Nowadays, I wish that I got a spec that was like 2 pages long. Usually it's like, a 15, 20-minute meeting with someone in product or someone on the business. And it's like, hey, we kind of want to build this. And then it's like 2 to 3 weeks of figuring out what we need to build. So, it's important to just remember that like, there's people behind the code and you're one of those people. And so it's just important to kind of realize that and not take it too seriously or get too bogged down if the code isn't doing what you want to do. Like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Engineering is fun. Every day I'm solving different problems for different people. And for me, it's in the space of baseball, which I think is really cool. And so as long as you think of it as like, always problem solving,